I want to shout out to Becky Linford, Victoria Petro Eschler, Melissa Nelson Stipich, Karen Mortensen, Debbie Hong, Melinda Street, Tiffany Chan, Bonnie Billings, Sheila. Is there anybody, Mallory, or is there anybody else I'm missing here? But this is great. We're pretty excited to have so many people go to the Women's Development Series. It's a great training. It's about 6 months, and it is a one-of-a-kind, nonpartisan political candidate training. So whether it's the school board that you're after or a political office or an appointed office, this is a great interactive and instructive training that teaches people the how and why of running for office. So it's a great cohort of women that will be able to network with other cohorts and learn some valuable information on how to run for office or be just candidate training for anything. So congratulations, and we are delighted to sponsor 18 women for this scholarship. So it's an exciting time for the club. Thank you, Robin.
Thank you, Helen. And I want to recognize Lauren Simpson has joined us, and she's a scholarship recipient. Thank you, Lauren. Now, Lauren, are you still at Alliance for Better Utah?
I'm not. I left about a month ago.
Yeah.
But Melissa, who is also here in this call, is still there.
Good.
So,
good. I'm so glad you're going. That's just terrific.
I know, I'm so excited. Thank you.
It's great. It's really, really great. And I wanted to mention, we had another elected official. We had Monica Zoltansky join us. Monica is on the Sandy City Council, Monica. And is
running council, and I'm running for mayor.
I'm
proud to have earned the endorsement of the Women's Democratic Club. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We need to get Monica elected. We need to have good people in these municipal seats. Yeah, thank you, Terry. That's right. Give her a big wave there.
Yeah, Robin, I just wanted to say thank you to you and Judy Calder and Katie Owens and Lisa. You guys have all been helpful. Wendy Evans, recruiting, helping getting the word out there. Catherine as well. So thank you to everybody who helped get us these great candidates.
Yeah, well, it's fun. This is how we build a bench. This is
Yep.
how we build a bench. That's exactly how we do it. I'm going to turn just a minute over to Wendy Davis. Wendy is the chair of our candidate support committee. And so she's been handing out money and endorsements. Tell us what's going on, Wendy. We got to get these people elected.
Yes, well, thank you to all of you who joined today. Your money does go in part to support candidates, so we're grateful for that. We have 16 candidates that we have endorsed to date that are still on the ballot that made it through their primary or otherwise don't have a primary. I will put their information in the chat. I encourage you, if you're in a city where one of these individuals is running, to please support them, whatever that candidate needs. And that's kind of an important qualification. Money is helpful, but sometimes 30, 45, or 60 minutes knocking a door can really, really help. So grateful to the committee. We've been working on this all year. I know it might not seem like it. We've just started to award money. If you know candidates in municipal races who are Democrats who hold our values of the Women's Democratic Club, please send them our way. There's information on the website. You do have to be a member of the club in order to receive an endorsement and in order to receive financial support, but we are just delighted to be able to support all these candidates. So thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. This is important work, and we are revving up for 2020. That's what we're working on right now, is to rev up for 2022. Okay, I want to let everybody know that we still have a Bagley cartoon that we're having a drawing for. I'm going to ask Mitch if he could put that up. Pat Bagley gave us this cartoon to put in a drawing. And what's so classic about this cartoon is that it was out a year ago. This is a year ago, Pat Bagley put this cartoon out. And to find that we are just kind of right back in this is just so ironic. So if you would like to buy a ticket or 10 or 20 and put your name in the hat for the drawing for this Pat Bagley cartoon, it'll be matted and Pat will personalize it to you. So if you're interested, please get on the website and buy some. I think the tickets are $10 or something like that. So if you'd like to do that, please do. Okay. I'm so excited to get to our speakers today, but we have to just have a little bit of business to take care of. My notes say, make a pitch for membership. If you're not yet a member, please join up. This is how we are able to afford to send all these women to that political development series. It's because all of you are members. I mean, we take that $30 or that $25 and we multiply that by all of us, and we've got the money to do some amazing things. So if you're not yet a member, please join. And for all of you that are members and you've renewed your membership, thank you so much. We're growing across the state. It's so fun to watch all of this kind of come together at last. It's really fun. I'm going to turn the time over to Kelley Jones, and she's going to tell you about an upcoming event that the Utah ERA Coalition is sponsoring. And we are a founding member of that coalition, and we're actively involved. So Kelley, I'll let you take a minute here and tell everybody about it.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. We are excited about the upcoming event, August 26th, which is Women's Equality Day. We like to call it Women's Inequality Day in our circles, just because it's an ideal that we are constantly working for. Please join us at the Capitol. I've put in the chat our amazing speakers, such as Jeff Worthington, Carolyn Pearson will speak, Olivia Jaramillo, who is a member of our club here, and former Representative David Irvine. And he is still sad that he didn't vote for the ERA when he could, and has become a great ally. So join us at the Capitol, and the information and the links to join with us are in the chat already at the top. So hope to see you there. Thanks.
Thank you. And just so everybody knows, the Women's Democratic Club the board allocated some money to have some fans printed, because it's going to be hot. It's August 26th, it's going to be hot. So we got these fans, and they all have this big circle that says ERA yes. And then it's got a little QR code down at the bottom and says provided by the Women's Democratic Club of Utah. But the idea is that we want to see all those fans waving while the speakers are up there speaking, so that they can see they've got a lot of support here to get this ERA ratified. So that will be fun. I hope to see a lot of you there. I will be there. Hope to see you there. I'm going to give a minute to Darlene McDonald. Where are you, Darlene? I'm so happy to have Darlene with us today. There you are, because Darlene is planning a rally.
Yes. Yes, I am. I'm planning a rally on August the 28th. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're good. We got you. Yeah.
Okay. August the 28th is the 58th anniversary of the March on Washington. So around the country, there will be 5 flagship locations: DC, Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, Texas, Miami, Florida, and Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. And those are going to be the top 5, the flagship locations. Martin Luther King III will be marching in the Phoenix, Arizona march, and hundreds of thousands of people probably be marching in each one of these different flagship locations, with many thousands marching in DC. They had reached out because they needed someone to host a march in Utah, because Utah was also flagged by the Brennan Center because of House Bill 12 that was passed, which is a purge law. And purges can be problematic because you can oftentimes purge the wrong people. So Utah was flagged as a state with potentially problematic voter restriction. So they needed someone to host the march. So I raised my hand and said, I'll do it. So one of the reasons, so right now I am dialing in from Bessemer, Alabama. And Bessemer, Alabama is where my parents are from. So I'm here right now visiting with some of my distant extended family here. I'm at my uncle's home right now. But when we landed, we went to Selma, Alabama. And as you know, hopefully many of you are aware of Bloody Sunday that took place in 1965, March 1965. And Bloody Sunday, what happened on Bloody Sunday is that the bridge on Edmund Pettus Bridge, when we learned of the late, great John Lewis, Amelia Boynton, and many, up to like 300 marchers were met by the troopers, the Alabama troopers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge and what became Bloody Sunday when they were clubbed and beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. John Lewis died with still the scar that he received in his head from being hit in the head with a club by one of the officers on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So I went to the Edmund Pettus Bridge. We took video and footage of it that we'll bring back with us, because I feel like, as Robin has been saying, we're in a moment when it comes to elections and recognizing why we're doing what we're doing, the work that we're doing, and the importance of voting, and especially in the local elections. And because what Donald Trump had wanted to happen in 2020, one of the ways that he was going to try to subvert the election was try to push it to the states. And if he was able to have pushed it to the states, there are more state people that are run by Republicans that would have and could have flipped the election over to Donald Trump. People think just because the Democrats had the House, that had control of the House, that if it had gone to the House, they would have voted to maintain the election as a result of January 6th. That actually is not the way it's written in the Constitution. It would have been pushed to the states, and the state legislators could have reversed the election and have given the election to Donald Trump. And that's what they were pushing for. So voting in local elections matter. And having your recruitment team together and getting really good candidates matter. But remembering the past matters and why we are here. So I am wearing, can you see my t-shirt?
You have to get up to,
Okay,
move your computer down, just yeah.
Okay, there you go. So I am wearing a historic Selma t-shirt, and I donated one to the Women's Democratic Club. And Robin can figure out the logistics of how she's going to host a rally to give one away. And it's important that we remember what happened in Selma, and especially the 58th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech, which is the 58th anniversary of the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. And that march led to the passage of the Civil Rights Act.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened in Selma, and this is why we cannot forget Selma, what happened in Selma is what led to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. And it's so important that we remember our past so that we can understand the moment that we are in right now and what needs to be done and how we move forward. So I gotta go now because they are calling me. And
All right, Darlene, what time? What time is it? It's going to be at the Capitol on the 20th?
Yes. So the march is August the 28th, which is a Saturday. We're gonna meet at the Capitol at 10 a.m.
Okay.
And we're gonna march. We're gonna have a short program. We're gonna have some speakers and some performers as well. And we're gonna march from the Capitol down to Washington Square. So this is our march on Washington, Utah style. And, and we're gonna march to the west side of the Capitol. It also happens to be the Arts Festival weekend. And so the director of the Arts Festival is also going to make available some vouchers for discounts. So the people that are in the march can also participate in the Arts Festival after the march. So you don't have to leave because there's nothing to do. There's plenty to do in Salt Lake that weekend. So after you march on Washington, you can participate in the Arts Festival that will be happening at the same time. So there's a lot of things happening. Also, so I started a nonprofit also at the end of 2020 because of everything that was happening in the world. And my nonprofit is One Utah Project. So if you go to oneutp.org, and there's a link on that homepage to get more information on the march. You can click on that link as well, and you get more information on the march.
Right.
So that's happening. So I'll see you all when I get back to Utah.
Thank you, Darlene. Thank you so much. Safe travels.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya. In some ways, Zoom is so much fun because you get to see everybody. I like that. Okay. Just one other quick announcement, we've got, our next meeting is going to be on September the 11th. We're going to be doing a program on tax the rich. I think we could all get behind that. Let's tax the rich and get some of these things done. Should be a great program. It's a national organization called Patriotic Millionaires. And you might look them up. They're fascinating. So they'll be with us next in September. October 1st is Politisauce. So those tickets will be coming up, and we will be giving away, we're gonna have a drawing for some tickets that the Women's Democratic Club received because we're a sponsor. So I'll send that information out. If you think you want a ticket, put your name in the hat. And then November 30th is the Eleanor Roosevelt Luncheon. So you'll want to be mindful of that. Okay, Katie, I think I'm ready to turn it over to you. This is our Vice President, Katie Owens, and she helped a lot with getting this put together today. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to turn it over now to Katie.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. I appreciate it. So Robin and I were talking a little bit before this came a little bit out of my anxieties. I have school-age kids starting school next week, and I'm a little worried. So I'm really excited to hear from these speakers a little bit about COVID-19 in schools and what is happening around the state and what we could maybe advocate for in the next few days. I don't know, my kids' school starts on Thursday, so it's coming. So our first speaker is Dr. Michele Kelley, and she is a public health social behavioral scientist and a public health social worker with the specialty in community, adolescent, and young adult health and well-being. And she's going to give us an update on COVID-19 in the schools.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I know everybody really wants to hear from Heidi, as do I. So I have some quick things here to say. So as a public health scientist, I'm hoping that some of the links and information I provide may help those of you with your advocacy and arguments. Okay, I try to get the latest information. I'm not saying that you can't find it yourselves, but I wanted to make it easier for you. So hopefully there's some nuggets in there that you can use. With that said, I do understand that everything needs to be tailored locally to local preferences and conditions. So let's see what we can do here. I'm going to, I think I have to screen share, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can get this to work. Okay, I'm not seeing my PowerPoint come up.
Are you sharing your screen?
I
now?
have PowerPoint. I think it has to be, I have to have permission.
Yeah, you should have permission if you click on the share screen button.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And I don't see, just a second here. No, I'm not seeing
Oh, who can share?
my PowerPoint. I did send it to Robin and Katie. I don't know if that's
Okay,
going to
I'm
help.
fixing that right now. So give that another try.
Okay, should I try again?
Yep.
Okay. There we go. Let me try again here. So I open the PowerPoint. Sorry, you guys. I do this a lot. You wouldn't know it though. I'm not seeing my file pop up here though.
Here, I'll see if I can share mine because I've got it.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Don't know why it's not working.
Here we go. Can you see that?
Perfect. So I'll just say next slide. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, thanks everybody. So this is just a little introduction to me. I'm still connected to the university. I'm Professor Emerita. So we can go to the next slide here, please. So this has already been said. I want to say I'm most proud though of working on the ACA, getting invited to the White House. And I'm secondly, also proud of these connections here that I value very much and still have on the west side of Chicago to educational leadership. This is really on the ground learning in the schools with the consortia. So education is a major determinant of health, longevity, and chronic disease. It's only one thing that overrides education a little bit, and that's income, because they're so closely interrelated. So in other words, your genetic endowment, whether or not you have health insurance or a doctor, those things do not account for as much population variation in health status as your years of schooling. That's very important to know. So there's a 10-year difference on average in longevity with graduation from high school. There's also about a 20-year gain with college, 4 years of college completion. Very important to know and not surprising. It's because you can access resources to keep yourself healthy, right? Healthy food, healthy environment, etc. So I learned from the best teachers and students. So I'm not going to say their names, but I just had to give loving thanks to my mentors right there. And also, we learned a lot of things together that I put in red there. We're working on COVID now, but mental health literacy, mindfulness adapted for youth, and things like this. So we're all focused on COVID. So we'll go to the next slide. I did time this, Robin, for 10 minutes. So next slide. Okay. So kids need to be in school safely. We all are probably shocked, but this shouldn't be surprising that we have this variant now. The pediatric intensive care units or PICUs are filling up. We're seeing more healthy younger children becoming seriously ill. It's heartbreaking to watch the news. We don't know about the long-term effects of COVID on young children and youth, especially with Delta. Delta changed the game. And right there is a good link for you with American Academy of Pediatrics update. Now we have more deadly infectious variants, and those could appear even beyond Delta. Like what's next? Winter may be very concerning with kids inside and maybe a worse variant. It has the greatest impact, of course, on lower income households and racial ethnic minority youth, but kids need to be in school for their social emotional health and for optimal learning. Let's get to that. I have some things for you there. I'm sure Heidi has better. So we know that masks work, they work better collectively. So kids don't wear N95s, they wear cloth masks if they wear them, and that's fine. They can get a significant risk reduction. But that's why all children, because there's synergy, need to mask up. There's a collective protection, really increases very high if everyone in the class is wearing a mask. Masks do not harm kids' health or development or well-being. Update from American Academy of Pediatrics right there. Lack of mask requirements can cause stigma and mask refusal, bullying. We will see schools closing down, kids in quarantine, and teachers and household members will get sick and worse. Associated issues with COVID and school safety. Well, you probably know all this already, right? Over school infrastructure, crowding, schools are vastly underfunded. That's a civil rights issue. It is a civil rights issue to adequately fund schools, and God bless our teachers for teaching under these conditions. Kids eligible for vaccines and their parents need to get vaccinated. There's great teacher and parent stressors, unpredictability of school schedules, concern for children's welfare, health, mental being, and learning. Next. Now, there's one thing today that I want to highly recommend to you, and I'd love to hear from you how you like this or didn't like it. If you have 45 minutes, it's up on YouTube now, Johns Hopkins Collaborative with Education, Public Health, and people out there, teachers on the ground in public schools, participated in this. This is only 45 minutes, maybe while you're cooking or something, you can listen to this, but this is the latest that we know about how COVID changed education and going forward. And this is a national big picture with some things from local schools in the Baltimore, DC area, but I've been in those schools. They're really great places for us to learn what's going on. So address learning loss from COVID, what the best practices are, kids missing key transitions from K to grade 1, transition to high school, school safety. What are they doing besides masks? And they're not going to do masks. What are they going to do? What about kids who are not thriving emotionally? How are schools using special federal COVID funding for additional services? Where did the money go? We should know that. Hybrid and online learning. What do we know about what works and what doesn't work, and who benefits from that? So we want to be mindful of health equity and social justice principles. These are really good links for you that I put there. And then next, I think this is the last one, Robin. Oh no, there's a couple more. Okay, so I am working with American Academy of Pediatrics and other health professionals on probably going to do a evidence-based paper on the importance of critical race theory, because there's arguments going on right now. In the left, we have what it's not. It's all about good pedagogical practices, why it benefits all youth. It fosters resilience and citizenship skills, can provide them, now AYAs or adolescents and young adults, because that's the group I'm most concerned with. It gives them a roadway to understand and make sense of the world around them. okay, which is a mental health benefit, a sense of coherence. It provides them with critical hope, instead of hokey hope, another positive construct related to persistence in the face of adversity by including all youth in their stories in history, that is their ancestral history, that speaks to their humanity. We're the only species, higher order mammals, that have a sense of history. You don't hear elephants talking about, man, remember when we did a stampede at that river and drove those poachers out 5 years ago? You know, we have to evolve our sense of ethics and civic responsibility over time, over generation. This is related to peace education, to appreciating, but not necessarily embracing or becoming difference. It provides essential knowledge and skills for democracy. That's what this is about.
Yeah.
So thank you very much and stay safe. These are some additional key resources here. I hope you all check out that 45-minute briefing that was held just a few days ago. Let me know what you think about it. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. Love you all. Stay safe.
Thank you, Dr. Kelley. That was really interesting. And I'll make sure that we get those links out in our newsletter. Thank you. Sorry, Katie, go ahead. Just had to throw that.
No problem. Appreciate it. And someone said that actually that last link got cut off. So I'll try to post it again in the chat as well. But thank you, Dr. Kelley. Appreciate that. A quick overview and those links. I'll be taking a look at some of them. Let me tell you.
Feel free to share the slides. I sent the PDF just to registered folks. So
yeah, we can put that up
Great.
on our website. We'll put it up on our website.
Great. And I want to say here too, that we would like to have a Q&A probably after our next speaker. I'm going to hold it until the next speaker. But if you do have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. And I'll ask those once Heidi's done as well. So next I want to introduce Heidi Matthews, who's the president of the Utah Education Association. And she was elected by her Utah public school teacher peers in 2016 to serve a 3-year term as president and then re-elected in 2019 for a second term. She has 28 years of public school teaching experience and served as an elected member of the board of directors of the National Education Association, representing Utah from 2014 to 2016, and was president of the Park City Education Association from 2009 to 2012. So thank you so much for speaking with us, Heidi, and we're excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Katie. Can you give me a sense of time? I didn't completely have that.
If we can do 20-25 minutes and then save some time for Q&A, that would be great.
Perfect. So thank you all so much for having me. What an honor. And I had a little bit of an issue with my credit card on your site, but I believe I'm your newest member and the check's in the mail. Yay! So or will be in the mail come Monday. So thank you for that. So just a little bit of background on me and the Utah Education Association. You know, I grew up in Washington State. I was there until I was in my early 30s and moved out here with my first husband and our daughters, who were at that time 6 months and a little over 2 years. So it was kind of a crazy time. But, it was Washington, and I was a Democrat because my parents were Democrats. And, we were all Democrats, it felt like, except for, I remember a boy named Mark, who his parents voted for Reagan when everyone else's were voting for Jimmy Carter. And, that was just life. And so being a Democrat in Utah is wow. And the more I have done that, have been involved, it's hard. I am a personal Democrat, but in my role as the president of the Utah Education Association and representing that, I represent a very nonpartisan group that we focus on education, and we, of course, align much more with democratic values, but need to be really careful as to maintain our focus with many of our members. And again, it's reflective of the state in terms of political affiliation, religious affiliations. We're kind of almost exact, and also in terms of education. We're about 3/4 female. So this is a great place to be. I can do a little share. So this is the mission, and I'm sorry if you see anything in the background on my slide. It's as scattered as my life has been these days. But the Utah Education Association's mission is really awesome. Advance the cause of public education in partnership with others. Here we are being partners, love that. Strengthen the teaching profession, promoting quality schools for Utah's children, and advocating the well-being of members, which I think is, such a high calling and one that we cannot do alone. Very compelling vision, especially now. Our vision, these are more goals we're working. I usually think of a vision as we exist to have a great public school for every student. And our 4 strategic goals: racial and social justice, professional development and support, quality public schools, organizational growth and capacity. So very, very similar to many of the things that you have been sharing here. So as the president of the Utah Education Association, I am the only elected, I'm the only governance who is on a full-time release from my school district in Park City. I taught English in Washington State at the high school level, taught for a couple years at Copper Hills High School in the Jordan School District when I first moved to Utah. And then I got my library media certificate and was in the library of a junior high, which was awesome. Oh my gosh, for 16 years. So now my 28 years is looking more like 33 in education, because I'm in the last 11 months of being in a 6-year or 2-3-year terms. So we are affiliated with the National Education Association, and which is the largest labor union in the country with 3 million members. Every state has a education association. Most states also have American Federation of Teachers, the AFT. They are much smaller. In Utah, they're very small, and they are affiliated with the AFL-CIO. And so they have, in addition to members, some very few in the K through 12, they have higher ed members, but they also have people who are sort of tangentially related to education, just to kind of clarify that. We also have local associations within all 41 of our school districts, with varying levels of participation. In Park City, we've had about 80% participation, which is really high. In some of our rural districts, it's lower, and that really does impact the ability to, be at the table, be recognized as the voice for educators. So that's just a little bit about me. I have 4 kids. The oldest is getting married on the day that you're having your next meeting, on the 20th anniversary of September 11th. I'm very excited. This is our first one. She's 30, and blended family. My husband is a retired teacher who I am more and more thinking is quite a bum for being retired while I'm not, especially these days. So Katie, I just love Katie. Oh my goodness. Well, all of you, and Robin, it was so wonderful to see you down at that rally. This has been a very frustrating time, but Katie talked with me about, what are some of the concerns of going back to school? I just had it up here. What happens? What are some contingencies with a COVID outbreak? What are those quarantine? What are the details? And then a little bit about what we are calling honesty in education as a way to not have the terms of critical race theory and all of that kind of take over a conversation without everybody's multiple and quite often misinformed interpretations of what that is. So since the beginning of the pandemic, our members across the state have been very, very divided, much like everyone in our state and in our country. And I receive as many hate mails about, why aren't you doing this, versus don't you dare do this, don't you dare call for a a mask mandate, or I will, or, you know, drop my membership. And it's been really tough. And so what we've had to do is just really be strategic and focused on our mission, which is why I wanted to share that with you at first, because it's the only way that we are able to bridge the divide of how our educators are feeling across the state. And that really, it really comes down to kids and what we need to do to keep kids safe, people face-to-face consistent learning, and putting ourselves as employees into the equation. You know, that our working conditions of our educators are the learning conditions of our students. And if we are not advocating for those working conditions and for those supports and resources and prevention strategies that are going to be able to keep our adults in the school, making them run, we can't expect for our students to have that optimal student learning. So with the latest with Salt Lake County, we again focused on the science and not the politics. And if our local health departments are saying that we would be that their recommendations are for masks to be used in schools and all the different prevention strategies to keep our kids safe, then that's what we should do, period. Period. And how that can become a political hotbed is just, it's part of something so much deeper. We are seeing the anti-maskers are the anti-vaxxers, are the let's attack critical race theory and what we think that it is, and words and ideas, and our question the professional integrity of the people that we have in our classes to you know, it's a long history of attacks on public education as a way to cause people to have concerns and raise concerns, and then come up with solutions that put public funds into the hands of private institutions where they don't have to follow the guidelines of you know, the state expectations and state standards. So it's really problematic. It's been going on for a very long time. It's very well funded, and quite frankly, they are out organizing us right now. So with regards to what's happening in the classroom, I've been able to sit on the COVID advisory, school advisory council, and I have to just really commend our health department, because when I first got on these meetings, I came in a little late, and anyway, they were really talking about putting out a very mild set of recommendations. And in the course of conversations, it's like, we can't have mild recommendations coming from the State Department of Health. We have to have a backstop. And I think they did a really good job. I don't know if you've seen it. Let me pull it here. And these came out, what, August 2nd or something like that. Oh goodness. It is amazing that I make it through life, I'm telling you.
You know, Heidi, I just want to pause here, and on behalf of everybody on this Zoom meeting call today, I want to thank you for what you are doing. Honest to goodness, do you sleep?
It's been a little rough.
Thank you. I mean, I have to reach out and say thank you so much. You were fabulous at that press conference. Sorry to interrupt, but I
appreciate that so much, and I really do. And you were so kind there. But it's tough. Well, you know, you're Democrats in Utah.
Yeah. But we're organizing, Heidi. We're organizing.
Yeah. So these are the K-12 recommendations. And I think that is really key right there, that it's a recommendation coming from our health department. And they did do a fantastic job of grounding the recommendations in the CDC, the American Pediatric Association, and they talked about all these prevention strategies, which is a little different from last time we had mitigation strategies. And we know, as was mentioned before, this Delta variant is a game changer, and it's so much stickier. It can be transmitted, as you know, by people who are vaccinated, and it goes so much faster. And now we're entering into a school year with not only some of the prevention strategies or the mitigation strategies that we had last year, like masks, like all of the PPE and things that were given, and in many cases, different like hybrid schedules and things that we could separate our students. We're going into this with none of that. And on top of all of that, all of the things having to do with employment are really are troublesome, because we've got people who don't have sick leave, that they've had to use it. Last year there were CARES funds and some of those relief funds coming from the federal government to cover the leave, to and assure that we weren't bankrupting our people who we knew were sending into these unsafe circumstances, and we don't have that. And there is so much uncertainty out there for uncertainty and fear in many of our educators about, what does this mean for my students and their health? What does it mean for me and my livelihood? What am I able to do to protect myself so that I don't have to be absent, because we had a shortage of substitutes before the pandemic? And how do I teach face-to-face and remote, and then when they're in quarantine and with no additional time? That's gone away, with no additional supports. In fact, maybe even more, because some of the districts have decided that they're not allowing one or the other, that you just have to you're either doing it this way or that way, without taking into account what's going to happen in a quarantine situation. So here's talk about vaccinations, and then they talk about masks.
Heidi, it may just be me, but I've got KJazz up on my screen.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Goodness.
Does anybody else? Am I the only one?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So I think you're.
Me too.
It might be the wrong tab.
Yes.
I think
that's embarrassing.
Well, that's okay.
It was an article about masks in school, so it was fine.
It was, and I had to check it because
Totally appropriate.
Someone said that that they were that this interview had me saying that we need K through 12 mask mandates, and I have never said that. I feel that, but I've never said it on behalf of the UEA, and that was really frustrating. So my apologies.
There you go. Now we're good.
So recommendations, K-12 recommendations. Here are the goals: keeping kids safe, what they should be doing, a little bit about vaccinations, a little bit about face masks, about how they are how they are bound by the Utah law, which I think was a really good way to couch this, that they're giving us our best recommendation, and they're also then pointing to the way that everyone's hands are tied. And then the isolation, this is what you should do, but this is the quarantine recommendations after a school exposure. But then it gets down to this last part, which is the most concerning and difficult, is local health departments and LEAs, the local educational agencies, the districts, will decide which quarantine options are recommended in their area. So the recommendations may differ across the state. So first off, you ask for ways of advocacy, advocating for our districts to commit to following the recommendations of their local health departments. And then if their local health departments are coming out with anything different than the recommendations from the state departments, find out why. Like, why would the local health department make a recommendation that is contrary to the State Department of Health? Now, if the local districts can do this on their own, they can't issue a mask mandate. That was pulled out of their purview. Of course, when circumstances were very different, frustrating. But the options for quarantining are really concerning because it's being put forth as options. And if a district doesn't say that this is what we're doing, we will have no way of stopping people from spreading the infection in our classrooms. Quarantining at home for 10 days or 10 days or 7 days and taking a test. Wearing a mask to school for 10 days. That's particularly for those who have already been vaccinated. Wearing a mask for 7 days, then getting tested and testing out, which, again, they're recommendations. It's very concerning. On another note, the concerns I'm hearing from teachers are things like, which I know Katie is feeling, and anyone with young kids going back into school, they're getting requests to have their children sit far away from the unmasked children, which, boy, I don't blame them. But what is a teacher to do, and what can a teacher do? What can they do on their own? And these are questions that we have kind of compiled as the UEA, as a state association, and that we're hearing that are coming in. And then we sent them out just yesterday to our local associations to ask their districts, like, what is our quarantine procedure going to be? How am I going to be notified if there is someone in my class who has been exposed? What happens when I am exposed? Am I going to be expected to teach remotely from home? Will I have a substitute? What if I'm sick? If I'm sick, do I still have to be working? Because I don't want to let my kids down. I don't want to add more work to my colleagues, but we don't have the substitutes to be able to be trained and have these lesson plans that can go out in all the different ways that they need to go. And last year, just about sent people over the edge in terms of workload. So and then there's testing. So here's some on test to stay. So there are different questions or definitions this year. Last year, exposure was the 15 minutes if you're masked, even if you're mask to mask, 15 minutes. I don't know if you remember hearing about that, but we would have entire football teams who would get up and walk outside the class on cue, en masse, every 15 minutes, so that if they happen to be exposed in a classroom, they wouldn't have to quarantine because they didn't have the exposure.
No.
And so this year, exposure is, if there is a virus in the classroom, it's exposure for the whole class. What we don't know is who's going to be the contract tracers, because that was something that was funded before with guidelines. The guidelines are no longer in this, so it's going to be done differently all over the place. How teachers are going to be, our educators are going to be informed of the, not only the exposures in the classroom, but at what level of enforcement and what role that they're going to be expected to play in that, which I think is really, really problematic, to be putting our educators into a position of having to enforce those guidelines. And then of course you add all of the concerns about just employee rights. Like, we're being sent into circumstances that, especially in the Salt Lake County, the health experts have said these are unsafe environments for our kids and their success. And I sort of joke, but not really, like, is this an OSHA claim? Are we sending people into an unsafe work environment? So there's a lot of uncertainty, and there's a lot of joy too for our people to get back. Everyone wants to be back in school face to face with their kids. No one wants to wear masks, but we are very, very divided on what people are going to do. Our hands are tied with what the legislature has done, and by extension, the county in that example, Salt Lake County. And even though it's worthy of a big fight, I know in Arizona, they just filed a lawsuit yesterday about the mask mandates being unconstitutional. We're looking at it, but our energy right now is really focused on day one back to school with kids, and how do we keep them safe? How do we keep them in consistent learning? What's in the scope of how teachers and our educators in our classrooms can be supportive of that healthy environment without jeopardizing their own employment. And also that there's just all these gotchas that are coming out from parents with understandably seating arrangements and how that could potentially cause a segregated classroom and be really problematic. Demands about curriculum and transparency. I mean, there's a letter floating around from Utah Parents United and that academic integrity movement that says, oh, I'd like to see every single piece of material that you are going to teach for the entire year. I've also heard that there are kits that are going in kids' backpacks that are laminated rule of the R277328, the rule that passed in the State Board of Education about making people feel bad about their history. And if a student deems that is a violation, they've got like a form that they're going to be giving to their teachers, that putting them on notice that the parents are going to be calling. I mean, this attack on teachers, it has to stop. And I think it's only going to work when we know the people that we're talking about, when we know them face to face in our communities, and we can bring people together to do the right thing. I said, a kindness campaign. No one can stop us from wearing masks. No one can stop us from doing everything possible that we can do to keep our students safe. And I'm getting worked up even just talking about it. So locally right now is really the way to go. And, behind all of these attacks on public education is the next step for all of them is their local school boards. And we're seeing it happen. We're seeing the way that so many have moved into local school boards and disrupted their meetings to such an extent that they're having a hard time doing their business. So getting good people like you all to run for your local school board is just, it's so imperative. And getting people that we know are courageous and committed to similar topics as what the mission is of the Utah Education Association, which boils down to what can we do for public education? What can we do for our kids? And all that entails.
Oh, thank you, Heidi.
Yeah, thank you. So we got a lot of questions coming through, but I just, and you talked a lot about this, which I appreciate, but just as a parent, is how do we make a difference in our own child's classroom even? And someone mentioned, can we even are there existing parent organizations? Maybe it's working with the teacher organizations. Maybe it's even advocating directly to the teacher to be a good example. And I know that some teachers may feel, teachers feel differently about that, I'm sure. But if you can create a culture within the whole school, ideally, but even within a classroom, that the norm is to wear a mask, I feel like that will go a long way. So are there things like that we can do on a very local level?
Yes. And I think that support of the teacher is so important. And we are going to come across some of our educators in our schools who are going to choose not wear a mask. I think they're going to be in the minority from what I've been hearing, by far, and especially in the Wasatch Front area. Getting the support of the principals is really important, because the principal of a school is such a tone setter in terms of what direction the school is going to go, and giving the principals especially, and by extension superintendents, but a balance to the loud voices that are out there. Because right now there is not a lot of balance. And there are a lot of people who feel like we do, but when they're not showing up to meetings and waving 3%er flags, it makes it harder for people who are in those positions. And then with your own kids, I think when I gave you the example of Mark in my 6th grade class voting for Reagan, we had a really big fight that I couldn't even defend. I had no idea why Jimmy Carter at that time was better than Ronald Reagan. But that's what my parents believed. And Mark and I didn't stay friends through that. And looking at our kids as being such a tough spot for those whose parents do feel strongly about not wearing masks in school, and how can we keep our friendships and kind of rise above that and still stay safe.
Thanks. I appreciate that. That's actionable to me. I appreciate a lot of that. We also had a question about sort of ventilation and the logistics of offering better ventilation. I know when I reached out to my superintendent, she said that there had been a lot of efforts to do that in the last year. But this question is, are there efforts to provide these resources for teachers, and even something that we could contribute to? Can we, band together and get ventilation systems for classrooms?
So, and that's, it's such a frustration for me. Like, I love Donors Choose, where teachers can put out these different projects and people can donate to them. But in the end, what it does is it makes it so that our districts and our state are off the hook for funding these projects that they really should. So it's a balance. There's a lot of money in the ARP and the American Rescue Plan, a lot of money. And it can go to things like the ventilations systems. So it's not necessarily the funds to get that done right now. It's a lot of the will, and it's the availability of construction and people who have that expertise. And so maybe even the best support would be to be rallying companies who do this kind of work and pairing them up with a school that it is especially in need of it, so that, kind of helping getting the contract going, but aligning those values. I know one time in my church, they were saying, like, we've got window cleaners here in the church, why not use them to do it? And I'm not bringing religion or anything into that, but if we know people who are supportive, who can get that work done, that would be a great help. Having the hand sanitizers and the washing your hands and all of those things, they're still important, but the Delta variant is so much riskier. And I also think given that school starts this week, for many already, and we're going to have to take care of our teachers and our educators in our school, so that because moving back and forth and quarantining in terms of what the expectations are when your child is out on quarantine, that if we could maybe volunteer there, like how can I help assist in alleviating that burden for you in terms of, and make this the best possible situation for my students, for my kid. That would be a huge help. And you know, I just wonder, you know, the first kid who dies.
I know.
And where's the liability going to
Right.
go? Oh yeah, Michele, I've been doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
So I had another sort of a legal question of, I guess it boils down to who can we sue? Of like, is there a legal way to sort of the county council for making this decision and specifically not listening to health professionals, or other venues along those lines that we could look at, we could consider?
And I don't know, but the lawsuit that was filed yesterday in Arizona, the Arizona Education Association is a part of it. And we had a group of state presidents within the NEA who had mask legislation that prevented any mask mandates. And we kind of had our little sort of small club of, you know, Tennessee and Arizona, all these red states. And we haven't met as much recently, but I'm not sure what our constitution says. I know in Arizona, I believe their constitution says something about providing a safe environment. I'm not I don't recall that being in our constitution. And it's like the bigger battle of changing policy, and then the most immediate, like, what do we do in our classrooms right now? And I don't know if you read Gerke's article this morning.
Yes.
Which I thought was very well done about that responsibility. I think our elected people have a lot of immunity because of being elected people. But it's,
you know, I think if we were to have a theme song that would be going with this meeting, it would be the theme from Jaws. Da-dum, 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 da.
And we're talking about kids, and we're talking about public education. And, you know, I went to a meeting with at the governor's office on how to diversify our teaching force. You know, we're about 30%, 70% white, 30% BIPOC of students in our state, and we have 3% educators of color. We're not even close. And how do you diversify? And all these examples of pay and where to recruit. And I'm like, how can we even be having this conversation when we're not talking about the current climate of how we talk about race and in our schools, and the attack on professional integrity and teaching accurate history. We have to pay attention to that along the lines of not only just our teachers who are here right now, but how we treat them right now is, you know, retention is recruitment. And if we're going to be taking away all these supports, making all of these more demands, making this just an unsustainable career, people aren't going to be clamoring to go into the classrooms, and that's going to impact our world.
Generations. Generations.
Well, thanks. So the chat has been going. If you haven't been paying attention to the chat, there's a lot of
I
good
haven't.
ideas going. Oh, no, you don't need to, Heidi. I've been trying to pull questions out, but I was just going to say, if anybody didn't get a question answered, I've been trying to kind of go back through and look at things, but you can unmute yourself and speak up if there's any sort of last questions or last things that we want to talk about. I also hope, I know Mitchell usually saves the chats, but I think that there's some really good stuff in there. So it'll be good to save the chat and get some of that. There were some good suggestions of actions that we all can
Oh,
take.
I would love to get a copy of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Heidi,
we'll do that.
Can I ask one quick thing? You mentioned this idea of kindness campaign. What would you recommend that we do as parents to support teachers right now?
Well, and it's going to be different everywhere. You know, the just met with our Severe Education Association president, and their needs there are very different from you know, what's happening in Salt Lake County and Granite or Salt Lake. I would, as an organization, reach out maybe to your local association. And we've got all the list of who the presidents are, or you can shoot me an email. I'm heidi@myuea.org and just get you in touch with some of the people there. That we work with the PTA quite a bit. I think everyone is just really looking for answers and looking. I know that our teachers, our educators are feeling like nobody's got their backs. Yeah. In some places, and just knowing that there's a group out there that can say, you know, how can we help you advocate for the things that you need?
Yeah. Well, that is, you know, I think we're running out of our time here. I want to thank.
Sorry, can I jump in really quickly just
sure.
about the PTA? I was the PTA president so I was the president-elect for 1 year and then the PTA president for 2 years at my daughter's elementary school. And I was definitely changing pace for the school because I'm very outspoken and like air quality is a huge issue to me. And this was a huge change of pace for the school. They were just used to the art things and not having a parent there who was really interested in student well-being, you know, like not having children at the drop-off and pickup line breathing exhaust, like right at their mouth level. And I'm nice about it. I'm not nice in my mind. Like, you know, I have a lot of opinions.
I can relate to
that. I'm pretty good at being diplomatic in person, and people really got on board. And I had so many people tell me over time, like, I never thought about air quality. And by the end of the year, so many fewer people were idling. Not, you know, not everybody, but it was a noticeable difference, at least by the end of my 2 years. But what I did notice institutionally with the PTA is that they are not a progressive organization, not in Utah that I saw. There are some individuals who are like-minded to me, but I never met anybody who was as willing to be outspoken as I am. And I'm an older parent. I was a scientist, and then I wasn't really thinking about the biological clock for some reason. So like, we had fertility problems. Anyway, by the time we had kids, I'm like, I'm already like grandparent age. But so I'm 49 and I've got 2 elementary, well, one starting junior high school. But anyway, I've got these young vaccine ineligible children entering school, one at an elementary school and one at a junior high school, where we already know from last year that even with the mask mandates, junior high schools and high schools were much, much more susceptible to the spread of these infections or COVID. So I'm concerned. And fortunately, my 2 daughters have a much stronger scientific understanding of what's going on than apparently many adults in our communities do. But it's super concerning. And with the PTA, like as myself, because of my PTA experience, I feel like I have inroads to talk to. I've got a relationship with my elementary principal that I can use. It has become much more professional than friendly than it was, because I'm really making personal requests, and I'm really asking him to be protective of my children instead of just being friendly and doing kind of PTA stuff. So it's changed our relationship. And working with the PTA, I just see most moms they want to cater events. They want to throw a school dance. They want to do field day, but they do not want to take on social issues. They do not want to take on health, health issues. They like even doing maturation day at our junior high or at our elementary school was very uncomfortable for parents, which I think is it's just so unfortunate, because all these things that parents feel uncomfortable emotionally doing, or they don't want to upset their friends, they don't want to make waves in their community, they will not stand up and advocate for the basic needs of their children. And I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm not, because I get it. It's uncomfortable, and I understand that. And for a lot of these people, they're much younger than I am. I'm at a point in my life where I understand pretty clearly that there are worse things in the world than not being liked by people. There are worse things in the world than feeling uncomfortable, because I might feel emotionally uncomfortable, but if I'm not dead, I'm okay. And I think there are a lot of people who feel like being disliked by the other parents or even by the principal is kind of it feels like an existential threat to them, and they will stay quiet. But I'm not there. That's not where I am, and I've never quite been there. But
you can give strength to others through that.
Well, but people are slow. But we're at a time where it's not like the air quality thing, which also should happen very quickly, but it was fine for me. 2 years for people to really start turning their cars off felt acceptable. It is not acceptable for it to take 2 years to just kind of gently get.
It's immediate. It's an immediate.
So how do we get since you're, the leaders here, and I'm a newcomer, I'm more of a lurker. This is my first luncheon, but and I want to participate in whatever can be done, either as an individual or in an organized way, to help put pressure on schools, or not pressure, but to help principals or to help school districts be able to make the right decision. How can we do this? Because I by being a part of the PTA, I lost a lot of respect for the PTA, unfortunately.
I don't know if you saw that there was just a parent, that Chris Phillips started a petition of Concerned Citizens Coalition or something.
Yeah. Right. Somebody gave that link in here.
Yeah. And I contacted him when it had like 30 signatures and it came up on my feed. I'm like, this is exactly what we need. We need parents to have this is a value statement. Mm-hmm. And to sign on. And, when they finally submitted it, it was like 2,500. You could do that in your school.
Okay.
And you could, what we need to do is give the people who have power, they still have their hands tied. We can't expect them to issue a mask mandate, but we can't, because that's not in their power, but we can give them the backing that we can do everything in our power, shy of what's breaking the law, to support them. And they need that. Our teachers need that, and our especially the administrators and the superintendents and the local school boards, and having that face to help balance out those loud voices.
And Eleanor, we need for you to run for the school board.
Well, I'm on our tiny little community council for school.
Those are so powerful.
Yeah,
that is a great place to be.
Yeah,
talk about being able to influence things like ventilation.
Yeah. Well, everybody, we've gone past our time. I do appreciate everybody that has hung in here today. This has been fascinating. Heidi, everybody give
Thank
Heidi a
you.
little hand wave
Oh,
here.
thank you.
Give this woman a hand wave. She
I
has
appreciate
been
it.
fabulous. Thank you so much for what you do, Heidi.
Thank you for inviting me.
We could not do this without you. We really couldn't. I mean, you're just such a wonderful advocate and such a nice person.
Thank you. Right back at all of you. I'm sure.
And a new member. Welcome.
Thank
Welcome
you.
to the club.
And when I saw you at the rally and you said something about, how nice it is to be with kindred spirits, it really does fill the soul. Like I'm a little beat up, as we all are. It's not special in that regard. It's just, it takes its toll.
Yeah, and I wanted to tell you that, I'll tell everybody that Mayor Wilson wanted to be with us here today. We were emailing back and forth to see if we could figure that out, but she's actually in a wedding, so we were not able to figure that out. But she wanted to be here today in support of you, and she's taken a lot